Many people get stuck between who they are and who they want to be. And I think that's where this I don't fit in thing comes from, because it's almost like you don't know if you're closer to who you used to be or who you want to be, and you don't know where it's trending.
If you are on an exponential growth journey of any kind, you are going to go from fitting in to not fitting in, back to fitting in, back to not fitting in, over and over and over again.
Next Level Nation, welcome back to another very special, as always, episode of Next Level University, where we teach you how to level up your life, your love, your health, and your wealth. We hope you enjoyed our latest episode. It was episode number 1285, How Much of the Truth Should You Tell? Today, for episode number 1286, happy Saturday, Finding the Places You Fit In. Alan and I were just having a throwback conversation. It was kind of a goofy conversation. It wasn't very serious. But Alan said, well, you were very popular in high school. You fit in with all the popular kids. And I said, that is not true. Maybe you think that, but that is very far from the truth. I didn't get invited to any of the parties until like junior year when I was on the baseball team. I wasn't as popular as you think. And I told Alan, I said, I didn't really want to fit in. I don't know if I've ever really wanted to fit in because I didn't really see the benefit of it. And here's the interesting thing. So usually we come in and Alan says, hey, what's your story? And usually I hopefully have a pretty decent story. For this one, I have no story. I have a thought. This is my thought. Many people get stuck between who they are and who they want to be. And I think that's where this I don't fit in thing comes from, because it's almost like you don't know if you're closer to who you used to be or who you want to be, and you don't know where it's trending. I think that's why a lot of people struggle to fit in, because it's almost like they haven't gone all in on who they want to be. And there's so much of that lag time between, I start exercise. Think of it this way. I want to fit in at the gym. Cool. This is what happens. You say, okay, I'm going to start going to the gym. In the beginning, you don't fit in. Really, you fit in from the place of you're somebody who now goes to the gym, but if you're somebody who's very new, you don't really fit in. You're probably afraid of judgment. You probably think people are laughing at you. You probably maybe you're embarrassed to use some of the machines because you don't know what they do. So it's almost like in order to fit in somewhere, you have to be super, super vulnerable because you understand you don't at the beginning. And I think that's where a lot of us get stuck is it's almost like I want to go from old world where I don't fit in to new world where I 100% fit in. Unfortunately, I think the process of getting to fitting in is probably just as challenging, if not more challenging, than not fitting in the beginning. Does that make sense?
Yes.
That's the episode. Have a good one.
Take care now. No, I actually wanted to share my fitting in story, for lack of better phrasing, and I would love it if Kevin would share his as well, because we want you thinking about yours. And I think it's a little bit interesting to hear Kevin say, I don't think I ever really wanted to fit in, because you're also someone who says it's easy for you to fit in. We did an episode not long ago where Kevin talked openly about like how he feels like he can kind of fit in anywhere he wants. And so ironically, what you really wanted was to stand out, because fitting in came really easy to you. For me, standing out came really easy to me. And it was the fitting in part that was always so difficult. And our listeners, we've been doing this core values analysis, for lack of better phrasing, with all of the NLU team. And essentially what we've been doing, and the NLU team is really like a beautiful small subset of the NLU community, obviously. And essentially there's this graphic, digital asset that Emilia sent me that has all these different common core beliefs. And there's helplessness, and there's defectiveness, and there's entitled, and there's all these different ones. And essentially what it is, picture a tree trunk, and like the branches are all the different core beliefs that you could have. And that's what this digital asset looks like. And it's like, I'm not lovable. I'm not good enough. I don't fit in anywhere. I can fix people. It's essentially common core beliefs in psychology that can really shape who we are as human beings. And if anyone's curious, I can, as a matter of fact, I can actually send it to the production team. There's a link in the show notes that will have this digital asset in it, and you'll see what I'm talking about. But what I did with many team members, because we're trying to understand how to lead effectively, and you have to know what motivates people. You have to know what their common core belief is. What we were doing is I've been on the phone with people, taking these chunks of core beliefs and then saying, okay, which one of these resonates the least? And then we slash that. Okay, which one of these resonates the least now? Okay, we slash that. And we hone it all the way down to one. What's the one? So we slash all the way down until just one is left. And then there's usually a two different ones that feed each other. So for me, it's everything's my fault and I can fix people. Those are common core beliefs, or not common, but those are core beliefs that I have deep within me when I kind of hone down in this process. The one that the team tends to have most after this analysis is I don't fit in anywhere, and usually it's in tandem with I'm unwanted or I'm unlikable or something like that. So one team member has I am unlikable and I don't fit in anywhere, which, by the way, they feed each other. I don't fit in anywhere, so therefore I think I'm unlikable. I'm unlikable, therefore I don't fit in anywhere. So these are kind of self-fulfilling prophecies. So to bring this back to the surface here for a second. In high school, I don't feel like I easily fit in. I do feel like I put a lot of effort into fitting in, and I was very much a chameleon, and I could kind of mold myself into what I needed to in order to be, like, I could be friends with the athletes. I could also be friends with the smart kids and the nerds. I could be friends with whoever. And I was extremely, extremely nerdy in high school. And what I mean by that is I just focused heavy on academics. I wasn't super athletic. I didn't hit puberty until I was basically a junior. And even then I was just tall and lanky. And high school was really tough times, not only at home, but also in high school. And I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that. So, of course, I'm going to think Kev was popular because he was jacked, he was athletic. You know, you definitely seemed to be more popular than me, at least from my perspective. But I remember I left high school and I went to Kevin's original analogy. The old world was high school in this case. And I went to college. And my college was a tech school of really, 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 really nerdy kids. And again, I'm not trying to be unkind to WPI. Everyone kind of knows that if you go to WPI, you're pretty much a nerd or whatever. At least back in my day, that was the thing. Oh, you went to WPI? You must be a genius. Like, that's kind of like the thing. And so anyways, I remember I went to WPI and I was like, oh my God, my people. You guys love physics too? I remember we took physics and I remember I'll never forget it. We're in this place called Stanford Riley. It's Riley 1 was our floor and it was a dorm. And we had physics mechanics, and I was the physics award guy in high school or whatever. And I was like the only one who liked physics for whatever reason. I don't think anyone else likes physics. So anyways, I'm in WPI, and everyone loves physics. And I'm like, oh, this is awesome. You guys all love physics too? And so there were some of these kids who knew stuff that I didn't know, and I was so excited. I was like, oh my God, you're like better than me at this. This is perfect. And now in hindsight, this is all fairly clear. I love to be a student. Mm-hmm. But anyways, then I fast forward. I go to engineering, electrical engineering, computer engineering. And my high school didn't have any computer engineering courses. Our high school. There was very little. I think there was like one coding course or whatever. We barely had computers. I think there was one computer lab. And some of these schools that some of my friends from WPI came from had like AP computer science classes, and they've been coding since they were 9, right? So I'm like in over my head. So I went from like not fitting in high school to like fitting in college finally, and then not fitting in again because now I'm in computer engineering and I'm a fish out of water again, right? And so eventually you grow. And I've actually since... then I went to corporate, blah, 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 started the entrepreneurial journey. When I was in corporate, I fit in again. everyone from college all went to corporate and they all made all this money. And I fit in. Then when I became an entrepreneur with you and a fitness model, fitness competitor, fitness bodybuilder, I didn't fit in at all anymore with my college friends. It was so drastic. I remember going to one New Year's Eve party and being like, oh, I brought Big Nate. And it was like, oh, so this isn't, okay, so this is different. Like, imagine computer engineers with like a 6'4", the most athletic human you've ever seen, Nate, Big Nate. And it was like, oh, okay, so this is weird. I don't fit in again. And by the way, this is in hindsight. I didn't know any of this at the time. And then I go into entrepreneurship, and now I see some of my college friends. I got dinner with one of my close roommates back in college not long ago, and he's still at a company called DraftKings. And I remember having conversations with him, and there was very little in common. I had a great time. We had sushi. It's all good, but I didn't have almost anything in common. You and I, Kev, every day, all day, we focus on, growing a business and growing ourselves, and, maybe not all day, every day, but you know what I'm saying? It's definitely, we contemplate life often. And I remember sitting across the table and I was like, oh, so you still play video games, and he's basically the same version of him that he was in college. Good dude, making a lot of money, doing his thing. But I remember feeling again, like, do I not fit in again? And so I have this roller coaster journey of like, I don't fit in, now I fit in, now I don't fit in, now I fit in, now I don't fit in, now I fit in. And it's a growth journey. It turns out in hindsight, I finally start to understand this. I'm growing and I'm outgrowing old world. So now I don't fit in an old world anymore. I don't fully fit in a new world. Then I do fit in. And then I want to go to the next level. So then I don't fit in an old world again. And it just rinses and repeats. It rinses and repeats. And so when you are on a growth journey, here is the uncomfortable reality. If you are on an exponential growth journey of any kind, you are going to go from fitting in to not fitting in, back to fitting in, back to not fitting in, over and over and over again. I just had a text today from one of my mentors who I talk often about, who is the CEO of many large tech companies, and he said, how are things? And he says, we're doing push-ups on the golf course, and he's like in, I don't know where this golf course is, maybe Florida, it's like, looks beautiful, but he's like, hey, how are you? And I had this moment of like, okay, that's interesting. He's an engineer, I'm an engineer, we can connect, but it's not going to be what it was. It's going to be different now because I'm different now. And so that's what I wanted to share, is hopefully taking our listeners through my ups and downs roller coaster of fitting in and not fitting in. Hopefully it gives other people permission to realize that this is pretty inevitable for anyone who's growth oriented.
Yeah, and I don't know if there's like a 5-step. There's a reason I titled it Finding the Places You Fit In, because I don't know if, I think sometimes you have to find and then sometimes you have to like infiltrate. Because in the beginning, it is a weird process where you're like, I think about martial arts. When I first started training Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, for those who don't know, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is, it's basically wrestling with submissions. It's very awkward when you go into a gym for the first time because you don't know anybody and you're grappling with people. So like I'm on top of Alan trying to choke him and I've never met you before. So it's a very weird thing where you go from not knowing somebody to shaking hands with somebody, then trying to choke each other unconscious. Like it's a very weird thing. But what you find is that when you're trying to fit in there, you usually go find somebody who is at a similar level to you. Yeah. Right? The white belts tend to hang out with the white belt. So a white belt is somebody who's very new. So that's your first belt. That's what you get when you sign up. Black belt is the best you can get. Usually the black belts hang out together because they fit in. They don't. That's the interesting thing. And it's almost like in the beginning, you kind of are a newborn baby deer where you're trying to get your footing and you don't really know where you belong. In the gym, it's the same thing. You know, I feel like that's a really good analogy for life. The gym is always a good analogy for life. But imagine you start a new job at this big company. When you walk in, you're not going to feel like, you might not feel like you fit in your old circles, but you're not going to feel like you fit into the new one yet either. That's the weird spot. It's like, okay, what do you do then? I think that's the thought process that I have is when you get invited to the company party, do you go? Or do you say, I'm not ready yet. I don't feel like I fit in. Well, most likely you have to be trending towards the new place you want to fit in, not the old places you don't belong anymore. And I think that's the really hard thing.
Hi everyone, my name is Amanda. I am a dental hygienist and a mom of 2 teenagers. I was first introduced to Kevin and Alan about 3 years ago, where I listened to a live Zoom training. I was really impressed with the value that they packed into that hour-long call, and that led me to their podcast page. I've been blessed to be able to be a student of them in that way through their podcast over the last 3 years, and the growth that I've seen in them, I guess, is what inspires me to keep coming back, because they not only talk the talk, but they walk the walk, and I see the changes in them, weekly, monthly, yearly. So that led me to book a consultation with Alan about 6 months ago, and I showed up to that call in the lowest spot that I've been at in my entire life. The empathy and compassion that he presented in that call and how much work we still got done despite the state that I was in was, again, very impressive to me, and I've been a one-on-one client ever since. Alan is someone that you want in your corner. I have grown so much over the past 6 months in my ability to make decisions, my confidence, the relationships that I have, my organization, my motivation, and I'm only just getting started. I've made so many big moves, and he is the biggest motivator and the biggest encourager, and he is a good human that genuinely wants the best in your life, your future, your love, your relationships, your wealth, and they just want to make the world a better place, and I believe that. And if you have the chance to be in the same room or on the same call or have these two in your life in any way, then you are blessed, and it is a gift. So thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for everything that you guys do and pour into everyone, and I'm just so excited to watch your journey keep unfolding and to be a part of that in any way that I can.
And this is the last thing I'll say, Alan. When I decided not to go to college, that's when I was like, I don't want to fit in. I don't care. I'm not worried about that anymore. That was a big thing for me because I was already off the path of normalcy. Like, I'm pumping gas, then I'm working at a hospital, and I'm driving a forklift, and I'm going to the fire academy. I'm doing all these weird things that
You're training to be a fighter?
I wanted to be a fighter. Yep, that was my goal for a long time. So I've always felt it's almost like there is a balance, because technically you can fit in anywhere if you want. It's just a matter of whether or not you're willing to do that. Are you willing to keep your mouth shut and just go along with the flow? Like, maybe not, right? If you're not, then you're probably not going to fit in there. But it really is that how long are you willing to chase that feeling that you're after? And then what are you willing to do? I really think the path to long-term comfort is through short-term discomfort. Really. And even when you find long-term comfort, there's short-term discomfort. But it's almost like...
Well, because then you're going to go to the next level.
Right.
Eventually. You can only hang at one level for so long before... This is what it is, Kev. I'm having major breakthroughs on this. Let's say I'll use my story as an example briefly. I remember my goal out of college was to get... I was at a party and I told this one person, I was like, he's like, you don't make any money. Like, when are you going to get a real job? And I said, well, what do you define as a real job? And he said 40-hour weeks. And at this time, he was like mowing lawns at a golf course or whatever, which again is fine, but he was being a dick because I didn't have a job at the time, which really bothered me, and he was just being a bully. But anyways, I said, well, out of college, I'm going to make 6 figures. And he's like, no, you're not. What do you mean? I was like, no, I will. And again, that was just, now in hindsight, obviously he's just being a dick and I'm being a dick back, right? So in hindsight, I probably would have just not bothered with this whole thing. But anyways, I did, right? I made 6 figures out of college. And I remember once I hit that goal, it was like, okay, now what? Like, what's next? What's the next level? And the next level was outside sales engineer because I hit it as an inside sales engineer. And so I think that the moment that you do fit in, okay, you set a goal that's beyond your current capabilities. Now you have to grow into it, which means you have to get around people that make you uncomfortable in terms of the not fitting in. Then eventually that becomes comfortable, but by the time it's comfortable, you hit your goal and now it's time to up the ante.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of like in acting. It's like C-list, B-list, A-list, or baseball, AAA, AA, major leagues. There's levels to everything. That's why there's middle school, then high school, then college, then corporate, whatever, then maybe entrepreneurship. Most people don't jump straight to entrepreneurship. Some people do. And I mean, we have one listener, shout out to Tiff. I'll keep it anonymous and no last names, but she is in corporate and she's finally taking that leap. And so maybe she took a little bit longer in corporate than I did, but that doesn't mean that that was wrong for her. It's all a decision. It's all a choice. And if you feel like you want to be at corporate forever, then stay at corporate forever. If you have a goal that requires you to leave, now you're going to have to really get uncomfortable. And then eventually you'll be comfortable, but by the time you're comfortable, you'll set a higher goal. Yeah. And I think that's the growth journey, Kev. I mean, you and I are comfortable doing what we're doing now, 7 episodes a week. But if we tried that in the beginning, we would never have been comfortable. And that's why you started Podcast Growth U and I started Conscious Couples Podcast, because we were ready for that next level.
Yeah, this is a good one. I'm glad we did this. Again, some of these episodes, I don't know if you'll leave with tactics. Sometimes you'll leave with an understanding. Hopefully you'll leave with an understanding of, oh, you know what? I never really thought about it that way. It's almost like the only way to really fit in is to figure out where you are. That's the only way really to fit in. It's like, are you trending towards the old normal, or are you trending towards the new normal? If you're trending towards the old normal, you're not going to fit in. You're not going to fit into your growth. If you're trending towards the new normal, you're not going to fit in with people who don't grow like you do.
Do you feel like you fit in?
No, not really. No, that's not what I'm not optimizing for that. Yeah.
What are you optimizing for? Your goals?
Yeah.
So
and being me, I want to be me. So like there's always those decisions where like I could say, you know, sometimes like when Taryn and I have friends over on the weekends, I'll tell Taryn, I'll say, just so you know, like I'm going to be going to bed before anybody else, because I have a long day tomorrow. I know I'm not fitting in. I know I'm not going to fit in with the group tonight. Like, I know that. I know I'm going to be the one who goes to bed, and I might break rapport, but it is what it is. Like, that's what I have to do. I would rather stand out in that moment than fit in. There's other times where I'd rather fit in because it's more in alignment with what I'm doing, but that I'm kind of always thinking of that.
I think this is why a lot of people don't want to set goals, is because the moment you have large goals, you kind of don't fit in anymore, in a way. I mean, even that small scenario, right? If you didn't have any goals and dreams, you'd just stay up too.
I like that, though.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting relationship with it. I think our listeners probably
understand.
I don't. I'll say that for me. I don't like having to go to bed early. I've always been the person with goals that can't fit in, but I always still wanted my cake and eat it too. It's like a weird relationship that I have. Your relationship with being different is very positive compared to most people, Kev. And I think that might be the one area where I understand the listeners at a deeper level. I feel like they don't like not being able to fit in. At least that's the feeling I got from the team with the I don't fit in everywhere. I think they want to fit in. I think that's why NOU's so special, because they actually fit in here. Having goals is cool here. You know, and I hope that that's how everyone feels. At least that's what I think we aspire to create, is be yourself, and it's cool to grow, and it's cool to have goals, and that's normal here. That's encouraged here. That's supported here. That's, you're not going to get made fun of for trying to have dreams. I think that's something I've certainly always wanted. And I don't think I ever really had it until this podcast and Emilia. At least not to the extent that I wanted or needed it. Yeah.
Well, I think another good question for the audience is, why do you want to fit in? Like, what does that mean? Is it belonging? Is it safety? Is it camaraderie? I just think, I don't know. I think I'm kind of at a place now, and not in every regard, but I feel like I belong where I am, in a way. Like, wherever I'm going, I feel like I belong because I'm there. And I know that probably sounds super arrogant, but I don't mean it in that way. It's just, if I'm there, I'm there. So I feel like I belong there.
This is fun for me. I'm on the other end of this one. This is interesting. You remember how I do the analogy of like the trampoline? It just doesn't. For you, I can tell. It's like, why would you?
I know. I can understand. When I was younger and I was in high school, like I was part of all the fads. Not really. No, that's not true.
No,
Everybody
okay.
went and shopped at Hollister.
You're different in this.
Yeah, I
You're
was
different.
anti Hollister because everybody else shopped there.
Definitely different in this.
Yeah.
And
Well-
so that's okay. That's just, we have a very, very interesting life where you and I are very, very different than the norm in these really extreme ways. This is one of yours. And then also we have these parts of us that like really, like, so for me, I've never fit in, but always have kind of wanted to. And for you, you always kind of easily could fit in, but didn't really care about it. It's like, it makes sense.
Yeah.
It does make sense in hindsight. So anyways, I hope the listeners got something valuable out of this.
Well,
But at the end of the day, this is a very hyper-conscious, contemplative episode of, but I will say this, the last thing I say. Where's the place where you feel like you can fit in the most? And is that somewhere where you're going to be able to grow? Because on one end, I have to change who I am in order to achieve fitting in. The other hand is I will fit in long term, even as I grow. With Kevin and with Emilia, I feel like as I grow, I actually fit in more. Whereas in the past, it was always as I grow, I fit in less and less. And I think that the listeners will resonate with that because as you grow and learn and develop, you're probably going to find it really difficult to fit in your old world. That's very common with all the people I've coached, all the listeners I've been on the phone with. They feel like, well, I don't really fit in back there anymore, but I definitely don't fit in fully over here either. So I'm in this lonely, weird middle ground. And we're hoping to help people through that chasm.
And understand what discomfort is worse. Is it worse trying to fit in somewhere that you don't want to? Like the past, you don't want to fit in there? Or is it harder to say, yeah, it's going to be very uncomfortable for me to go into this room where I'm way behind, but I want to fit in there eventually? I think that's what I was trying to say in the beginning is like, no matter what, there's going to be some level of discomfort. It's just at least trend in the direction you want to end up in.
Which one did you prefer? I know we got to go, but...
What?
So like when you went to the Brendan Burchard event and you were so blown away by how much you fit in, when you thought you were going to be way over your head or whatever, which do you prefer in hindsight? Being comfortable? Which one of those?
I think this is one of the reasons I enjoy being alone so much. I love being alone. I very rarely get lonely. The only time I ever really get lonely is when Taryn's away for more than days. But other than that, I don't really get lonely.
Yeah, well, you also have a life that's surrounded by a lot of people, right? So, but was that always the case? Because you said you used to get lonely up in New Hampshire.
Well, yeah. I mean, there was days where I didn't talk to. I didn't use my voice for days when I lived in New Hampshire. So I think that was a little too much on the reclusive side.
Okay.
I like standing out.
When you went to the Brendan Burchard event, you were kind of like, okay, well, I don't really fit in with my old friends, but I don't think I'm going to fit in here either. Which one? You obviously preferred the Brendan Burchard one, or is it?
I felt very empowered. I felt I felt like there was a lot of potential for me to grow into instead of the forcefulness to shrink back.
Yep.
That potential for
but
growth.
Both are uncomfortable. That's
Yes.
the key takeaway here is that the force to grow, the necessity to grow, or the necessity to shrink.
Yeah.
That is powerful.
Yeah.
We should create like a one-liner around that. That's something.
I'm on it.
I've always felt a stronger necessity to shrink than a stronger necessity to grow. That's why I get so excited when people are ahead of me.
It was a deep episode.
Very,
It
very.
was a deep episode. Next level nation. If you have been hearing this and you are thinking to yourself, yeah, are these guys ever going to stop talking about Next Level Live? Yes, we will. But if you're there with us, you will never forget it. And that really is the ultimate goal. The reason we're talking about it so much is because it's probably the most valuable thing we can do. Yeah, there's one-on-one coaching. Yeah, there's group coaching. Those are very valuable. But there's something about going to an event with other people that listen to the same podcast as you, where you can meet them and you can say, okay, this is an opportunity for me to shift my identity. That is why we're talking about this so much, because I think it will change your life. If you give me 4 hours of your time, I cannot think of a better way to help you improve your life. That is why we're talking about this so much. Link is in the show notes. Please join us if you're a local. We would love to meet you or see you again if we've already seen you.
So if you are feeling like, you know what, I don't really fit in with my old friend group anymore. I don't really fit in with my family anymore. I keep having to shrink myself and or dial down my truth. I'm not really able to talk about the books I love or the podcasts I listen to. I don't feel comfortable or safe to talk about my growth, to talk about these deep things. Group coaching and or Next Level Live, I can promise you're going to meet other people who feel that way, who are just as eager as you are to dial up their truth. So Group 10 starts on April 4th. It's you and 9 other like-minded individuals with Kevin and myself, bi-weekly coaching sessions. We've got an assistant coach, office hours in between, private WhatsApp group. This program is for people who are not fitting in at the old level and they really want to get to the next level. And that's really what it is. So the link will be in the show notes. There is a promo code. So reach out to Kevin or myself. We can give you the promo code. It's only for listeners of this show. It's 30% off, which brings the entirety of the program to less than $300, which is, I think, $96 per month for 3 months.
Next Level Nation tomorrow for episode number 1287. We'll talk a little bit about what we talked about today. We're all trying to find a way to get our needs met. I'm very excited to talk about that one. One of the most powerful TED Talks that was ever recommended to me by one Jeff Lazaros was Tony Robbins' 6 Basic Human Needs. So we'll talk about that a little bit. As always, we love you. We appreciate you. Grateful for each and every one of you. And at NLU, we do not have fans. We have family. We will talk to you all tomorrow.
We will talk to you tomorrow.